Today we're going to be talking a little bit about medical gear, obviously. And I think the purpose of this video is to kind of show our viewers the different ways that we carry our medical gear and then the components that are inside medical gear. And what we want to do is kind of, by the end of this video, give our viewers an ability to build their own kit out. Hello everybody, it's Clint from Marauder Tactical Group. Today I'm joined with Nick. Nick is one of our instructors and he has an extensive background in tactical medicine. I'm going to let him introduce himself and talk a little bit more about that. Nick?
Thanks for having me, Clint. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here today. I got my start in this in Ranger Regiment. I was a infantryman there as well as a squad EMT.
Rangers lead the way.
All the way. After I got out of active duty, I joined the Ohio Guard and became an MP. That was lame. Following my completion of my time as an MP, I became a critical care flight paramedic. That was pretty cool, learned a lot, really helped my understanding of medicine as a whole. I'm no longer in that role, and now I'm back in the soft community in a support role. So that's pretty cool, I'm excited to be there. And my normal job, my day job, I'm a paramedic on the west side of Columbus. Get a lot of reps in there. So.
Awesome, that's pretty high-speed stuff. Being a tactical medic or a flight paramedic, why don't you talk a little bit about like what you would use as far as a mission? Like, do you have a medical bag or a jump bag or something along those lines that you would actually use?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So my equipment is always tailored to what I'm doing and scaled to what I'm doing, right? So I have my first line gear that's on my body, right? Your basic IFAC, individual first aid kit, that stuff. Then I have a bag to get me from the point of injury to our evacuation vehicle, and then I'll have equipment inside of the vehicle that's maybe a little bigger than what I want to carry on my body that has my basic stuff and then my advanced stuff.
All right, so for our viewers who maybe aren't in a medical role or they're not tactical paramedics or that's not their job on their team, they obviously still need to be carrying medical equipment on a mission or into a dangerous situation. Can you show them a little bit about what they would be carrying or how you would carry your equipment on a plate carrier or on a belt or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is my plate carrier here. So the way I have it set up is I've got 2 tourniquets, easy for me to grab, and then I have a kit down here that has my first line treatment gear. All right. Then on the left side, as worn, that's just a SOP. Anybody could put it wherever, I suppose, but it should be where you can reach it readily. It is my own first aid kit, my IFAC or individual first aid kit.
Okay, right. So you have 2 IFACs essentially on this kit.
Yep.
And this front one you're saying is what you would use for somebody else, another injury. Yep. And then the one on your left, that is a unit SOP. Everybody in the unit would be carrying that IFAC on that left side. That way, if you were to go down, people know exactly where to go to get stuff to help you out.
Yep, right? Exactly, yep.
Okay.
And I talked about the tiered equipment type stuff on my belt that I carry as well. I also have an additional IFAC and tourniquet. So I've got a couple.
So as an assaulter or maybe a breacher or somebody on a team that necessarily isn't going to be carrying a huge jump bag with medical gear, they should probably at least be carrying 1 to 2 or possibly even 3 IFACs on their actual first and second line gear.
Yeah.
Safe to say. Now, for our viewers who maybe they're not on a team, they're not doing this professionally, maybe they just want to go to the range and get some training in, or maybe they want to have some kind of everyday carry.
Yeah, EDC stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a tourniquet that I carry every day. There was a time where it's kind of funny when you're less experienced, you tend to carry more to make up for that lack of experience. As you get more experienced, you kind of hone what you're carrying and carry even less. So I used to carry a lot. Now I just carry one thing when I'm wearing like this as I am if I'm at the grocery store, things like that. Just a SWAT T tourniquet, nothing crazy. Great for kids, great for dogs, great for adults. It's multi-purpose and they're pretty affordable. They're only like $15. So.
Okay, so that'd be like a more incognito carry, maybe a concealed carry. You don't want people to see a huge bag on you. But what about our viewers that may be going to the gun range, or maybe they don't mind if they don't actually mind carrying an IFAC on them?
Yeah.
Is there something that we can show them that isn't as tactical, maybe an everyday carry item or something that they can put in their vehicle, something like that?
Yeah, so if you could hand me that bleeding control module right there, I'll talk about that. This is just a whole bunch of exactly what you're talking about, right? I'm all about doing stuff on a budget, so there are commercial kits like this They're pretty expensive. This is just a Harbor Freight case that I printed this little label out, tape it on the inside, and then each one of these have the same items, which we'll talk about here in a sec. But you can build one of these for about $40, and that's including your tourniquet. That's about $25, right?
So just a small IFAC, doesn't have to
yeah.
be tactical or camouflage. This one I like because you can actually see inside.
Yep,
and see what the
exactly.
components are.
These are great for if you're handing something to somebody who has less training and you say, get me this. It's easy because that you have to open up all the way. If you don't know exactly where everything is, you might have to search for it. This is pretty easy to get to.
So for like somebody who's coming to our courses, you know, something like this would be preferable for, you know, a basic pistol course or like a church security course, as opposed to maybe like if we're doing an advanced carbine or like a CQB course, they would probably want to go with an IFAC on their plate carrier.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Let's get into a little bit about what's in these actual IFACs and talk a little bit about the components and where people can find these components.
Okay, yeah. I like to start out when I'm building a kit, I go through my March algorithm, and that's kind of how I set my kit up with what I need in there as far as kind of a minimalist kit.
So can you explain to them real quick what March algorithm is?
So March is massive hemorrhage, airway, respirations, circulation, head trauma, and hypothermia, and then E is just kind of everything else. There's different variations of it, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
For today, we're kind of going to focus on MAR and H for hypothermia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for massive hemorrhaging, looks like we got some tourniquets here.
So it's important to buy quality tourniquets from a reputable dealer, right? North American Rescue, Sam Medical, things like that.
What about this guy?
Yeah, don't do this. This is your Amazon $10 cat copy. You need this windlass, right, to maintain its rigidity, and it will not do that. I would not trust this with my life. They're good for training. I bought one just to show people not to buy, but really, these ones are what you want.
So even though it's a cool color, or it's FDE green or camouflage, we don't want those,
don't
right?
use those.
We want an actual cat tourniquet from North American Rescue or a reputable source.
Or the Sam XT. Now, I have personally used all three of these types right here, the SWAT T, the SAM, and the Cat 7s. And they work really well when applied correctly. That's the key, is you have to have training and know how to apply them. Moving on from there, for additional bleeding control, I've got combat gauze, right?
Okay.
There's different kinds. This does get pretty expensive. So do you need it? If you can afford it, yeah, I like it in my kits. If you can't afford it, you can buy this roll of acrylics or S-rolled gauze at a fraction of the cost. I want to say these are around $40, and then you can buy a bulk pack of these for like $10, $15.
So what makes these more expensive is the hemostatic agent that's involved with the combat gauze, as opposed to just a regular gauze that does not have that. So this is going to be much cheaper than one of these.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Is there a huge difference in it, or would you recommend this over this one?
If you have the money, I would recommend the combat gauze. If you don't have the money, having gauze that would still allow you to pack wounds with that direct pressure up against the vessel, if you can do it, is the way to go.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yep. So moving on from there, maybe you want to get into pressure dressings, right? So this is what's inside of those wrappers over there. They're not too expensive either. I want to say probably $7 to $10 each.
Okay.
So it does get expensive if you're trying to build a whole bunch of kits, like for a church bleeding control module, something like that.
Yeah.
But what you can do, I got ace wraps right there. So you can open these up, you can toss these little metal things away because nobody's going to use those, right? But this basically, it's not the same thing, but you lose that on your bandage, but you can still use it as a pressure dressing, right?
So if you were to use a gauze, this would apply that pressure.
Yeah, you can use that to wrap it. The cool thing about these tourniquets here too is if you're not going to need the tourniquet, you can use this as a pressure dressing as well. Yeah.
That's, so that's the SWAT T tourniquet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that covers most of the bleeding.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Airway.
Yeah, so Airway. A lot of people will carry OPAs, oropharyngeal airways, or NPAs, nasopharyngeal airways. If you're not trained on how to use them and what the contraindications are, just learning how to position a patient is going to help you better, right? So having them sit up, open, head tilt, chin lift, things like that will benefit them more than you putting an OPA in and somebody potentially vomiting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So when we get in Airways, we're talking more about scope of practice. Obviously, paramedics and EMTs are going to have different capabilities than everyday citizen.
Yeah, so like my airway adjuncts, I have crite kits, I have stuff to do ventilations, I can run ventilators, all that kind of stuff. But for the purposes of this, how to position a patient and open an airway are going to help you out a little bit more.
So as just an everyday person building an IFAC out, having a NPA like this one here on them isn't necessarily a bad idea, but what you're saying is more or less they should be more concerned about how the patient's sitting, opening up that airway.
Yeah.
Because there are some contraindications with this, correct?
Yeah, yep.
There's some ways that you could actually make a patient worse by inserting an airway wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
basically.
unless you understand that and have the training, then you should probably just stay away from these airway components.
Yep. If you're building a kit for your own IFAC for like a body armor setup, not a bad idea to have it because the responder coming to you, they may be trained on how to use that stuff. So
it's good to have it. Maybe somebody that's on the range, or maybe somebody, or if you have a medic on your team, they'll be able to pull that out of your kit and use it accordingly. Okay, so moving on from airway, let's talk a little bit about respirations, right?
yeah, so respirations generally involves your chest, not limited to just your chest, right? Think about your armpits, your upper back, things like that. So the treatments that we do for those injuries there are chest seals, right? So they come in vented and non-vented, many different variations. Same thing with the tourniquets. You want to make sure you're buying from a reputable source, North American Rescue, something like that, right? Now, I like to ball on a budget, so don't skimp on the tourniquets, the gauze, and the ACE wraps you can kind of save some money on, right? The chest seals, also, I want to have the right stuff. When they get older, the hydrogel, that like sticky substance that you put on the chest, it gets really hard to work with. So again, I'm all about being on a budget, but I would try to keep these within date if you can. Yep.
Okay. That covers bleeding, that covers our massive bleeding, that covers our airway, that covers our respiratory.
Yeah, so moving from there, just for the scope of this, we're going to go straight to hypothermia. So for hypothermia, what I carry is just right there, an easy space blanket. They're super cheap. You get them on Amazon. The two types of warming that we would do are active and passive, right? So active would be hand warmers inside of a car where you can crank the heat up, things like that, versus passive. It doesn't really add warmth, it just helps preserve the existing warmth.
All right, so we've talked about the components of your IFAC and why those are important. For our viewers, I know you mentioned it already a couple times. What are some like really good places where they can purchase these items, where they can trust the equipment to work properly?
Yeah, we're not sponsored by anybody. All this stuff has been personally purchased, right? But I've had really good experience with Rescue Essentials. Sometimes you can look around and find like a promo code for free shipping or 10% off. You know, they have their sales and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff here today I bought from there. You can buy direct from North American Rescue. Amazon, you do have to be careful. You know, I'm okay buying some of the gauze and stuff on Amazon, but that fake tourniquet I showed earlier, that was in Amazon, and they don't tell you that it's fake. You know what I mean? They just say like, "Oh, tourniquet." So
your
you gotta be
tourniquets, your respiratory
my
interventions,
tourniquets, my chest seals, my combat gauze, I'm going to buy from
reputable sources, right?
Rescue Essentials, North American Rescue, Sam Medical, something like that. Yeah, Chinook Medical.
And we'll throw a couple of the links in the bio as well. That way you guys
Give people a starting place. Yeah.
Okay. For people coming to our classes, right? Let's just go ahead and show them how we would set up an IFAC. You know, we're not talking about a huge medical bag. Maybe we're just talking about, you know, a personal IFAC that's going to be on your plate carrier or EDC IFAC, right?
Yeah.
The consensus is that all these bags have the same components in them. Some bags just have more advanced components or maybe have more advanced life-saving equipment in it. But the meat and potatoes are the components that we showed you for trauma. That's the stuff that we're going to have in our kit, right? So why don't we go ahead and show them how to set one up?
Yeah, so I'll kind of actually go opposite order because I have one here already built. So we'll just take everything out and you can see how it's in here as I'm taking it out, right?
Perfect.
So something we didn't talk about earlier, gloves, right? I like to have brighter colors. The black gloves are cool, but if you're in a low light environment and you're looking for blood, it can be kind of hard to see sometimes. So
of course.
Remember I was talking about balling on a budget, right? So I just have a little ACE wrap, my tourniquet, a space blanket, just some normal gauze. There's nothing crazy about that one. Wound packing gauze, acrylics, a Sharpie, some 3-inch medical tape, some chest seals, and some trauma shears. All right, so you can build this kit as pictured for about $40. Yeah.
And this kit's going to cover just about any traumatic injury that you can think of, from a gunshot wound to a stabbing.
Yeah.
Maybe not extensively, but we'll do the trick.
Yeah, it'll get you by until first responders can get there.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Now, this is focusing on your intense injuries, right? You don't want to forget about your more basic things. If you've got kids, you know, what's more likely to happen, right? Cuts, scrapes, you know, headaches, things like that. So everybody kind of probably has a medicine cabinet with that kind of stuff already. So you may incorporate some of that into one of your kits when your vehicle or something like that.
So we're talking like Band-Aids,
yeah, Band-Aids,
small gauze.
ibuprofen, moleskin for blisters, Pepto stuff, you know, if your belly's upset. Just easy things that you can throw in that really make a world of difference if you're out in the field.
Right, of course. How would we pack this into our IFAC? Because obviously, you know, if we're talking about March, and we're talking about massive bleeding, that's the first thing we want to stop.
Yes.
So we would probably want that stuff up top where we're going to be able to get to it first. So what would we put at the bottom when we're building this kit up?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I work backwards in my March algorithm when I'm packing my stuff. What I'll do is I'll put my hypothermia management stuff in there. Okay, then I'll take my chest seals, I'll slide them in.
So that's our hypothermia, and then you put your respiration in there. So now we're looking for massive bleeding, right?
Yeah, so massive bleeding, a lot of the stuff left is my massive bleeding stuff. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and tuck my bigger stuff down at the bottom.
And this is massive bleeding components that you're not necessarily gonna need immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The tape isn't something I'm gonna need right away, so I also like to put that kind of in the bottom.
Okay.
Same with this guy. Probably not gonna need it right away, so I'll kind of shove that in the middle, all right? Then I want my tourniquet on the very top.
Can you talk a little bit about how you have your tourniquet staged there? Because I know that sometimes that can be a point of...
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always open my tourniquets up out of the wrapper. When you're storing them somewhere, you want to try and keep it somewhere somewhat climate controlled, away from sunlight. The UV light can damage your tourniquets over time. So I'll open it up out of the wrapper, and pretty much all my tourniquets are set up just like this, where I can loop it over somebody's limb, and it's ready to be deployed, right?
So it's important to have it actually staged before you pack it away.
So one of the big things, I see a lot of law enforcement officers, they'll have their tourniquets staged like this, they're in their pouches with the windlass strap over.
Okay.
You're not wrong for doing that. However, if you try to use it for self-aid and you're putting your tourniquet on, now you have to undo the windlass strap to try and get that to hold when you're already injured.
So the time tag should be open, allowing that windlass to move freely.
Yep, exactly.
If you have to do self-aid. Okay.
So then I just flat fold it like that. So again, when I need to deploy it, I can just, and I'm ready to go.
Cool. So this is probably going to go at the top of your IFAC, correct?
Yeah, this would be my most deadly thing that I would need, like most deadly injury that I can make the most difference with. So I want that on the top.
Gloves, obviously, personal protective equipment. You know, obviously if you're dealing with a stranger or somebody, you don't want to have their blood all over you.
Yeah, if it's my kids, my family, I'm not going to put gloves on. If it's a stranger, I'll probably put gloves on.
Okay, and you also have a marker there?
Yeah, a marker so that I can write the time the tourniquet was applied. Not something that's super critical, so I'll just shove that down where you can kind of see it in there.
So that all fits in there real nice and neat.
Yeah.
Everything's right where you need it. I do like that it's clear so that you can actually see the components in there and get to the stuff that you need quickly. So that's awesome. I think that's definitely like a really good SOP for anybody who's watching to maybe put together a personal IFAC for you or your family. Or if you're coming to one of our classes, using this video to kind of build out your IFAC is going to be super helpful.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, well, thanks a lot for coming in today and showing us all your equipment, how you stage that equipment, the bags you use, the components. I think you did a really good job of explaining to our viewers how you actually stage that IFAC. Hopefully they'll be able to use that if they're coming to a course or they're maybe setting up a kit for their family. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you. Is there anything you want to say before we close it out?
Yeah, well, first off, again, thanks for having me here today. We talked about a lot of cool stuff today. You could have the most expensive, craziest first aid kit, but without training, it's absolutely meaningless. So just reminding you, make sure you get out, get training, vet your instructors, and
Of course.
carry on.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. MarauderTacticalGroup.com. Hop online, sign up for some courses. If you're interested in this medical training, we have a ton of extensive courses that go into further detail on these kind of things. We really get down in the rabbit hole when it comes to tactical combat casualty care. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.